Dim light spills into the hallway, casting long shadows against the guest room door. Jessica leans back against the wall, her breath trembling, her chest rising and falling as Kevin stands just inches away. His shirt is half unbuttoned, his jaw clenched, and his eyes full of everything he's never dared to say. Jessica, barely a whisper. "You're married to my sister, Kevin." Kevin, voice low, raw, "And yet, my heart still aches for you." Her breath catches. He reaches out, his hand brushing her cheek with trembling reverence. She turns her face slightly as if to resist, but her body refuses to move, and then their lips collide. Desperate, wrong, inevitable. It isn't gentle. It isn't rehearsed. It's of longing bottled up and breaking loose. He lifts her without thinking, her legs wrapping around him instinctively. Clothes fall, fingers tremble. Gasped apologies are whispered between kisses. Apologies they don't mean, but feel they should say. In that moment, love and betrayal become indistinguishable. Because sometimes, the heart doesn't care about consequences. It only remembers who made it beat first. 2 years ago in Los Angeles, Kevin Hart wasn't looking for love. After relocating from New Orleans to Los Angeles, all he wanted was a clean slate, a new city, a new job, and maybe a quiet life to heal from a past that never really let him go. He was a software engineer by profession, but the wounds of his personal life made him an introvert in practice. He worked late, came home early, and avoided parties like a religion. But fate doesn't always need an invitation. One rainy evening, Kevin had stopped at a downtown bookstore cafe, the type that smelled of roasted coffee beans and old pages. That's where he first saw her, Sabrina Mitchell. She was radiant, dressed in a navy blue pantsuit, her umbrella dripping beside her, a cup of chai in her hand, and a novel tucked under her arm. Her energy was warm, magnetic. She didn't look like she belonged in the rain. She looked like she commanded it. Kevin had accidentally bumped into her at the counter. "Sorry," he said. She smiled, and Kevin felt something shift. "You're forgiven, but only because you didn't spill my chai." They laughed. It started there. From strangers to something more. Sabrina was a successful interior designer, bold and expressive, with clients all over Los Angeles. Kevin, quiet and thoughtful, was her opposite in many ways. But somehow, opposites weren't clashing this time. They were complementing. Their first date was at Griffith Observatory. Kevin had chosen it because he liked the stars. Not just the ones in the sky, but the ones that didn't talk too much. Sabrina teased him about being a silent philosopher, but deep down, she loved it. Their second date was at Venice Beach, walking barefoot along the shore as the sun melted into the Pacific. Sabrina talked about her dreams of opening her own studio. Kevin talked about growing up without much family. That night, they kissed under a street lamp, the city humming in the background. Sabrina introduced him to her world, her designer friends, art galleries, jazz nights, and Sunday brunches. Kevin, in turn, gave her the one thing her fast-paced world lacked: stillness. They were falling, slowly, deeply. 6 months in, Sabrina did something she rarely did. She invited Kevin to Sunday lunch with her parents and cousins. It was a cozy 2-story home in Pasadena, filled with laughter, wine glasses, and the smell of roasted lamb and baked potatoes. Her parents were warm. Her father, retired from real estate. Her mother, a former ballet instructor. There were a few siblings there, a younger brother, 2 cousins, and some friends of the family. Everyone loved Kevin. He was respectful, soft-spoken, smart, and when Sabrina's mother pulled her aside and whispered, "He's a keeper," Sabrina smiled and whispered back, "I know." A month later, Kevin proposed. Simple and private, just the two of them at Runyon Canyon, with the city lights below and the wind kissing their cheeks. Sabrina said yes with tears in her eyes. They married 6 months after that. Now married, living in a modern hillside home in West Hollywood, Sabrina and Kevin seemed like the perfect couple. They didn't have children yet. Sabrina said she wasn't ready, and Kevin respected that. They hosted dinner parties, traveled to Napa Valley, and on weekends, Kevin would cook while Sabrina danced barefoot in the kitchen. Kevin smiled more often now, but he still had nights when he sat alone in the dark, nights when he stared at the sea from their glass balcony. Sabrina never asked about those moments, and Kevin never volunteered. One day, Sabrina's parents invited them for lunch. It was supposed to be an ordinary Sunday. The entire family was present again. Sabrina's parents, cousins, her brother, a few aunts. The long table was filled with food, wine, and cheerful conversation. Kevin had just stepped out to buy some extra champagne. Sabrina had asked him to. A quick run to the corner store, just a few blocks away. The house was lively, full of stories and laughter, until the doorbell rang. Sabrina's younger cousin opened it, and there she stood. A woman, beautiful, graceful, in her late 20s, with long waves of dark hair and eyes that didn't match the joy around her. They carried the weight of something else, something ancient and painful. Everyone froze. Her father stood, mouth open. Someone whispered, "Jessica?" Time seemed to stop. Sabrina rushed forward, covering her mouth. "Jessica! Oh my God! Jessica!" The woman nodded silently. Tears burst out of Sabrina's eyes. She threw her arms around her sister. "You're alive! Oh my God, you're alive!" Everyone was crying, hugging. In disbelief, Jessica stood frozen, returning the embrace faintly. Her face was calm, too calm. That's when the door opened again. Kevin walked in, holding a bottle in each hand. He froze at the scene. Then his eyes landed on her, Jessica. And Jessica turned, meeting his gaze. She didn't blink. Kevin's breath left his lungs. The bottles nearly slipped from his hands. Sabrina ran to him, pulling him forward like a child showing off a toy. "Kev, this is my sister, Jessica. She's alive. Can you believe it?" Kevin looked at Jessica. Jessica gave a slight shake of her head, a body language only Kevin understood. Say nothing. And though he was trembling inside, Kevin managed to force a small smile and nod. "Wow, that's unbelievable," he whispered. His voice cracked. Jessica didn't say a word, but her eyes, they said everything. 5 years ago, somewhere in San Diego. It started as nothing serious. That's what Jessica told herself. She had just graduated from design school, and in the wild excitement of youth, she decided to take a solo cruise for the first time in her life. A week at sea. No responsibilities, no family obligations, just her and the ocean, a breath of independence before chasing her career. Kevin had also booked the cruise, alone. His friends bailed last minute, but he still needed a break from the world. The cruise wasn't even his thing, but that night at the bar, the universe had other plans. They met during karaoke. Jessica was laughing hysterically at someone's terrible rendition of "I Will Always Love You," and Kevin, sitting beside her, muttered, "That song deserves better." She turned to him, smiled, and replied, "Then go sing it, hero." He didn't, but they spent the rest of the night talking. Their connection was instant, magnetic, and yet built on mystery. Kevin didn't ask too much about her family. Jessica didn't pry into his past. Maybe it was the sea, maybe it was the moon, but for once, being strangers felt safer than being known. Their days were filled with laughter by the poolside, long walks on the deck, quiet dinners where their eyes did most of the talking, and midnight conversations under the stars. They made love by the ocean breeze, their silhouettes glowing under moonlight as waves rocked the ship gently. Like nature knew not to disturb them. Kevin didn't know Jessica's last name. Jessica didn't know where Kevin was from, but they both knew how they made each other feel. Alive, unjudged, safe. At first, they treated it like a fling, a story to remember and laugh about years later. But something shifted. One evening, as Jessica traced her fingers across Kevin's palm, she whispered, "What if I didn't want this to end?" Kevin looked at her, really looked at her. "I don't think I want it to either," he admitted. That night, he held her tighter than he ever held anyone. And for the first time in years, Kevin imagined a future. He imagined waking up next to her every day. He imagined going home together. But fate had other plans. On the last night of the cruise, a sudden storm hit. The ship trembled under the force of the waves. People were panicking. Alarms rang. Rain lashed through the open deck. Kevin had gone inside to get their jackets. When he came back, Jessica was gone. He searched everywhere, from the pool to the lower cabins, from staff to security. Nothing. Hours turned into a nightmare. The ship returned to the harbor early. A rescue team was deployed. The Coast Guard found nothing, only a handbag, floating near a broken railing. Her name was not on it. Just like that, she vanished. Kevin never forgave himself. For 2 whole years he searched, hired private investigators, scanned missing persons reports, put up anonymous notices in every online forum. He went back to the docks countless times, hoping someone would remember her face. No results. He didn't even know her full name. He carried the guilt like a ghost. At night, he'd dream of her. In the mornings, he'd wake up sweating. No closure, no goodbye, just a storm and silence. That day during the storm, Jessica fell into the water, and the current took her away. Jessica had survived. Barely. The waves had dragged her far from the ship. She lost consciousness, slammed against rocks. A passing cargo vessel had spotted her, unconscious and broken, and radioed for help. An older couple living on a coastal ranch took her in. She was in a coma for 4 years. When she finally opened her eyes, it was as if time had cheated her. She had no phone, no memory of the exact crew's name, no proof of Kevin. The authorities had assumed she was a traveler with no ID. Her face was not in any database. She had switched her hair back then, dyed it, and left all her things behind. When her memory came back, the pain came too. She tried to find Kevin, but he had vanished from her world just as she had from his. Once fully recovered, Jessica returned to her hometown, Los Angeles. She contacted her mom that she was alive, meet with her, but told her not to say anything to anyone yet. She wanted to start over. But before she could find her footing, one day her mother, who only knew she was alive, called and invited her for lunch. The whole family would be there. They hadn't seen her in years. Her return from the dead was the miracle they didn't know they needed. Jessica said yes, and with hesitation. Something felt unfinished. She didn't expect to walk into that lunch and see Kevin again. She didn't expect to find him married to her sister, but when he stepped into that room and their eyes met again, she knew fate had not forgotten them. It had only waited. Jessica sat quietly at the far end of the dining table, the warmth of her family surrounding her like a tight rope she wasn't sure she wanted around her neck. It was a golden afternoon, the sunlight pouring in through the windows of the Walters family home. The dining room was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, the smell of roasted chicken and mashed potatoes. But her hands were cold, because across the room, standing frozen by the door with a champagne in his hands, Kevin. The man who had once held her like she was the only thing in the world worth saving. The man who now stood speechless, his entire world crumbling in one glance. "Kevin!" Sabrina's voice rang like bells in the cathedral of tension. She ran to him, hugged his arm. "You won't believe who's back. This is Jessica, my sister. Isn't it incredible? She's alive." Kevin didn't say a word. He just looked at Jessica. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Jessica quickly gave a subtle shake of her head. Her body language was clear. "Don't say a word. Not now." He understood, but it broke something inside him. After the lunch ended, Sabrina pulled Jessica aside with a bright smile. "Listen," she said, "you're not going anywhere." Jessica frowned. "What do you mean?" "You're going to stay with us," Sabrina insisted. "You've been gone for so long. I want us to catch up properly. Besides, we've got the space. It's just Kevin and I. We've got a guest room. Hell, call it your room. We're sisters, Jess. We need this." Jessica hesitated. "Sabrina, I don't know if that's a good idea." Sabrina turned to Kevin. "You don't mind, right, babe?" Kevin's jaw tensed. He looked at Jessica, then back at Sabrina. "Of course not," he said flatly. "She's family." Sabrina clapped her hands. "See? Kevin's the sweetest. It's settled." Jessica looked at Kevin one last time. There was a storm in his eyes and silence in hers. That night, Jessica moved in. The guest room was beautiful. Cream-colored walls, a window overlooking the backyard, a queen-size bed with soft sheets. Sabrina even placed a bouquet of flowers by the nightstand. Jessica sat on the bed, staring at nothing. Memories flooded in. Kevin's laughter on the cruise, his arms around her, his promise, "I'll never let go." The door creaked. Sabrina stood there. "Get some sleep." The next day, Jessica had barely settled into the guest room when the weight of everything began to suffocate her. The walls of the house were silent, but carried ghosts. Kevin avoided eye contact. His footsteps were always loud, like he was making sure she knew he was nearby, and at the same time, that he wasn't coming closer. Sabrina, on the other hand, was radiant with joy. She couldn't stop smiling. "I always prayed for this," she said one morning at breakfast. "You, me, and Kevin, having breakfast, missed you." Jessica forced a smile. "It's good to be home," but the word home felt like a lie. A beautiful prison, painted with memories that both healed and haunted. On a Thursday afternoon, Sabrina had gone out with her best friend, leaving the house quiet and still. Jessica was in the kitchen, cutting up vegetables, trying to keep herself occupied, when Kevin walked in. They hadn't been alone since that day at lunch. He paused in the doorway. She looked up. Silence. She tried to turn away. He stepped forward. His voice cracked first. "You weren't supposed to be alive." She froze. Her hands shook slightly as she placed the knife down. "I looked for you. For 2 years. Every ship record, every report. They said you drowned, that there was no way you survived." "I did," she said softly. "Barely." Kevin's voice trembled. "You were gone. I was empty. Sabrina. She was a light I didn't know I needed. But it was you I wanted. Always you." Jessica turned, eyes wide with anger and pain. "Then why didn't you tell her?" "Kevin, I wanted to tell her about my past. I planned to. But the moment I saw you that day at lunch, I was speechless. Now I don't even know where to begin. You both are sisters." She broke off. "She doesn't deserve this pain," Jessica whispered. "And you don't deserve this confusion." He walked closer, too close. "I'm not confused. I loved you. Before I knew your name, before I knew your sister was my future wife. I loved you when you disappeared. And now you're here again, and I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't breathe in this house with you here, pretending you're a stranger." Tears welled in Jessica's eyes. She turned her back to him. He stepped behind her. "Close, too close. I've kissed your sister every night since we got married," he said. "But none of them ever erased the taste of you." Jessica's breath hitched. "I am married to your sister," he said. "But I'm still yours." She didn't turn, but her body leaned into his, just slightly. "You're a coward," she said. "I know," he whispered. "But I'm a coward in love with you." Jessica shoved him and walked away. That night, the rain fell hard. Jessica stood by the window in her room. Kevin passed in the hallway and paused when he saw her silhouette against the glass. He knocked. She shouldn't have opened the door, but she did. Neither of them spoke. The lightning cracked outside. "I shouldn't be here," he whispered. "Then leave," she whispered back, but her feet didn't move. He stepped in. She didn't stop him. And that night, everything they tried to bury surfaced. Clothes weren't torn, and nothing was rushed. They didn't want to hurt. They wanted to feel. Every breath was desperate. Every kiss was guilty. It wasn't just lust. It was longing. Years of it. When it was over, she laid against his chest, trembling. "This is a mistake," she whispered. He closed his eyes, holding her tightly. "Then why does it feel like home?" It happened. 3 weeks later, they had gotten reckless. Stolen touches in the hallway, shared glances during family dinners. Jessica tried to resist, but Kevin kept pulling her in. One night, when Sabrina decided to return home early from a work event just to surprise Kevin, she bought a good wine, got into her car, and drove off. At home, dim light floods the hallway as Jessica leans back against the wall of the guest room, breath trembling, eyes locked on Kevin. He's standing inches from her, shirt slightly unbuttoned, eyes filled with a storm of everything unsaid. "Jessica, you're married to my sister, Kevin." "Kevin," softly, "and yet my heart longs for you." She shudders as his hand brushes her cheek. She tries to step away, but her body betrays her. Their lips crash together, desperate. It wasn't planned, it was clean. He lifts her, and she clings to him. Sabrina arrived home. She climbed the stairs slowly. Her heart pounded for no reason she could explain. The guest room door was slightly open. What she saw shattered her. Sabrina gasped. They both turned. Kevin froze. Jessica stumbled back. Sabrina's eyes brimmed with tears, but her face was cold. "So this is what it feels like," she said, "to be betrayed by blood." The silence after Sabrina's words hit harder than a scream. Kevin stepped forward. "Sabrina, don't." Her voice was sharp, but her face remained frozen. "Don't you dare say a word." Jessica stood speechless, her lips trembling, her hand gripping the bedpost like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "You're my husband, Kevin," Sabrina said quietly. "And you," she turned her gaze to Jessica. "You're my sister." Jessica tried to speak. "It's not what you think." "Oh, really?" Sabrina laughed, hollow and bitter, because from where I stood, it looked like my sister and my husband were making out. Kevin clenched his fists. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." Sabrina turned on him. "Then how was it supposed to happen, Kevin? Were you planning to keep sleeping with me while secretly sleeping with her? Did you think I'd never find out?" Jessica stepped forward. "Please, Sabrina, I never meant to hurt you." "Oh, spare me the 'I didn't mean to' speech," Sabrina snapped. Her voice cracked. "You moved into my house. You smiled at my table. We both played, laughed, and all these while, you were sleeping with my husband." Jessica looked down. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it?" "Huh?" Sabrina cried, tears now streaking her cheeks. "You want my husband?" Jessica froze. Kevin looked at her, desperate. The room went still. Sabrina let out a slow, shaking breath. "Get out!" Neither moved. "Get out!" she screamed. Kevin packed a bag that night and moved to a hotel. Jessica didn't sleep. She sat at the edge of the guest bed, crying until dawn, reliving every moment, every word, every kiss, every mistake. The next morning, Sabrina didn't speak to her. Not when she walked past her in the hallway. Not when Jessica tried to apologize. Not even when Jessica handed her a letter and whispered, "I'm leaving." Sabrina only stared at her with broken eyes, then walked away. 3 days passed. Jessica moved into a friend's apartment. Kevin tried calling. She didn't answer. Not yet. Then one morning, she received a visit from their mother, a woman who had watched her daughters grow up inseparable until now. Their mother sat across from Jessica and said gently, "I raised strong girls, and now I'm watching both fall apart." Jessica's eyes brimmed with guilt. "I never meant to destroy anything. Sweetheart, you were never the destroyer. Life threw you off a ship and into a coma. You woke up to a world that had moved on without you, and now you're left trying to make sense of it." "I didn't mean to fall back in love with him," Jessica whispered. The day Jessica surprised her family and saw that Kevin was married to her sister Sabrina, 2 days after that lunch, she told her mother everything. How she came across Kevin in New Orleans, their relationship. She told her mother she wouldn't do anything to destroy her sister's marriage, but she couldn't bury the feelings she has for Kevin. She couldn't stop herself. They tried not to, but couldn't. While tears fell down Jessica's eyes and her mother reached out, that kind of love doesn't just disappear, but neither does family. Jessica wiped her tears. "Do you think she'll ever forgive me?" "I don't know," her mother said, "but I think you both need to stop punishing yourselves." Meanwhile, Kevin stood alone in his hotel room, holding his wedding ring. He had spent nights looking at old pictures of Sabrina laughing, of Jessica smiling, of their wedding, of their family dinners. He was a man split in half. The past and the present were both sitting at his table, and the guilt was louder than his heart. He made a decision. A week later, Sabrina agreed to meet both of them at their mother's house. Jessica walked in first. Sabrina was already there, seated, calm but unreadable. Kevin came last. He looked thinner, worn down. Sabrina looked at them and said softly, "I'm not going to fight anymore." Jessica's eyes flicked to her. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you two loved each other before I ever existed in his life, which I never knew till all this happened. I can hate you, or I can accept that what we had was built on the ashes of what you two lost." Kevin's voice cracked. "Sabrina, I never wanted to hurt you, but you did," she said simply. "And I'll carry that pain for a long time, but I won't let it define me." Jessica reached out. "You're my sister." "You were," Sabrina said. "Maybe one day we can be that again, but not today." Then she stood, picked up her purse, and walked out. Kevin didn't follow. Jessica didn't cry. She just sat there with the weight of love, guilt, and hope all resting on her shoulders. A month later, Sabrina called Kevin back to their home and handed Kevin a signed divorce papers. She sat across from him in the living room of the home they once shared, a home that now felt like a museum of broken vows. The silence between them wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. It was heavy, almost sacred, like they both knew this was the end of something that once tried to be love, but never fully was. Kevin looked at her, eyes glossy but grateful. "I never meant to hurt you," he said, voice low. "I know," Sabrina replied, "and I forgive you, both of you." Her smile wasn't forced. It was fragile, but real. The kind of smile that only comes from a woman who has accepted her pain and decided not to let it turn her heart cold. "I loved you, Kevin. I still do. But not the way a woman should love her husband, and maybe, deep down, you were never mine to keep." Kevin wanted to speak, but instead he nodded. Because how do you thank someone for letting you go with grace? Over 8 months, the day Jessica and Kevin got married, the sky in Los Angeles was gold. It wasn't a grand ceremony, just close friends, soft music, and honest vows. Jessica wore a simple lace gown, her hair tied back, a few strands framing her face like memory. Kevin stood at the altar, nervous and trembling. The kind of trembling that comes not from fear, but from the weight of a second chance. And then, as the guests rose, a hush fell across the garden. Sabrina walked in. She wore a soft blue dress, not to stand out, but to stand strong. The moment Jessica saw her, her eyes filled with tears. Sabrina walked up to her, took her hand gently and whispered, "This time, don't let go of each other." Jessica broke down, sobbing in her arms. Forgiveness wasn't just spoken, it was lived. 1 year after Sabrina and Kevin divorced, Sabrina met Noah. He wasn't a man who wore charm like perfume. He was calm, patient, and didn't try too hard to impress. He noticed the small things, like how she always touched her necklace when she was nervous, or how she drank her coffee with a single swirl of the spoon, never more. At first she resisted. She had rebuilt herself and wasn't sure she could let anyone in again. But Noah didn't rush her. He walked beside her, not ahead or behind. Slowly, she began to smile more, laugh louder. And one night, as they sat beneath the stars on her balcony, he whispered, "You don't have to be strong with me. You can just be Sabrina." That was the night she fell in love. They were married in a quiet ceremony by the sea. On their first anniversary, she gave birth to a baby boy. He had Noah's eyes and her spirit. And as she held him in her arms for the first time, she whispered, "You're mine, all mine." Kevin and Jessica had a little girl after a year of their marriage. A beautiful baby with Jessica's dimples and Kevin's quiet eyes. They named her Hope, a symbol of everything they had survived. Sometimes the two families would see each other at family dinners, birthdays, or on quiet Sunday afternoons at the park. Their children would play together, innocent and untouched by the chaos of the past. Sabrina would watch from a bench, baby in her lap, and smile. Not every love story ends the way we expect, but some endings are exactly what the soul needs to begin again. So let me ask you a question. If you were Sabrina, would you forgive Jessica and Kevin?